My daughter-in-law's cruel words rang out at her lavish Napa Valley wedding. "Meet Helen, our family's embarrassment," as my wine glass shattered on the marble floor. But when her billionaire father's face froze in shock, staring at me, 250 guests turned. Who am I to make a tycoon tremble? Hit subscribe and let's uncover the truth. Let me take you back to that Napa Valley evening, where the sting of my daughter-in-law's words still burned in my chest. I'm Helen Carter, a 58-year-old widow from Sacramento, California. Most folks know me as the quiet woman who tends her rose garden and drives a beat-up 2008 Toyota Corolla. I keep to myself, savoring simple joys like a strong cup of coffee and my late husband's old jazz records. But beneath that plain exterior, I've guarded a secret for 15 years, one that turned a billionaire's face to ash at his daughter's wedding. The Harper estate was a sight to behold. 40 acres of rolling vineyards, a sprawling mansion with an infinity pool glinting under the California sun, and a string quartet filling the air with melodies that screamed money. Emily Harper, my son Michael's new bride, floated through the crowd in a $20,000 gown, her smile as polished as the crystal chandeliers. My Michael, 34, glowed with a joy I hadn't seen since his father, John, passed a decade ago. I'd chosen my outfit carefully, a modest sage green dress from Macy's, paired with my mother's silver locket. I wasn't here to stand out. I'd learned long ago to blend in, to be the unassuming widow everyone expected. But Emily's mother, Vivian Harper, had other ideas. As I sipped my wine, her sharp eyes raked over me, her diamond earrings catching the light. "Helen, how quaint," she said, her voice dripping with condescension. "That dress must be so practical for Sacramento." I smiled politely, biting back the urge to tell her I could buy her entire wardrobe with a single phone call. See, my late husband, John, and I weren't just engineers. We built something extraordinary, something that changed everything. And as I watched Emily whisper to her parents, pointing at me with that smug grin, I knew this night was about to unravel in ways none of us could predict. The Napa Valley air felt thick with tension as the string quartet's melody faded into the background. My heart still stung from Emily Harper's vicious words at her wedding reception, branding me the family's shameful disgrace as my wine glass shattered on the marble floor. The eyes of 250 guests burned into me, but I stood tall, my sage green dress a quiet shield against their stares. I'm Helen Carter, a 58-year-old widow from Sacramento, and I'd spent 15 years perfecting the art of being invisible. But in that moment, as Emily's smug smile gleamed under the chandeliers, I felt the weight of my secret life pressing against my chest. I wasn't just a humble gardener with a rusty Toyota. I was something else entirely, something Emily was about to learn the hard way. The reception was a spectacle of wealth, the Harper estate sprawling across 40 acres of vineyards, its tables adorned with caviar and $200 bottles of Napa Valley Cabernet. My son Michael, 34, twirled Emily across the dance floor, his face alight with a joy that warmed my soul, reminding me of his father, John, who'd been gone for a decade. I'd chosen my modest dress and silver locket to blend in, to avoid the spotlight. But Emily had other plans. She glided over, her $20,000 gown shimmering, her parents, Richard and Vivian Harper, trailing behind like royalty. "Mom, Dad," she said, her voice a saccharine drawl that made my skin crawl. "Meet Helen, Michael's mother. The quaint addition to our family." Her words hit like a slap, but I kept my smile steady, trained by years of discretion. Vivian's lips curled into a smirk, her diamond earrings glinting as she leaned in. "Helen, you must feel so out of place here," she said, her tone laced with pity. "All this must be overwhelming." I sipped my wine, swallowing the urge to tell her I could buy this estate with pocket change. But before I could respond, Richard Harper, the billionaire real estate mogul, froze mid-sip, his glass trembling, his face drained of color, his eyes locked on me like he'd seen a ghost. Helen Carter?" he stammered, his voice barely a whisper. "You're the one from the Harper Realty deal 3 years ago, aren't you? The investor who saved my company?" The room seemed to tilt. Emily's smile faltered, her green eyes darting between her father and me. "Daddy, what are you talking about?" she snapped, her polished facade cracking. Vivian's hand clutched her pearls, her gaze narrowing. "Richard, you must be mistaken," she said sharply. But Richard shook his head, his voice rising. "No, I'm not. I remember you from the boardroom. You sat there, quiet as a mouse, while your lawyers took my company for a steal." The crowd around us hushed, their whispers buzzing like static. I set my glass down, my heart pounding but my voice calm. "I think you're confusing me with someone else, Richard," I said. Though the lie felt heavy on my tongue, his eyes told me he knew the truth. 15 years ago, my husband John and I made a choice to hide our wealth to protect Michael. After selling his energy management patent for $30 million, we built a fortune. But I never wanted Michael to live in its shadow. I raised him to value hard work, to earn his place as a marketing director through sweat and talent. But now, as Emily's eyes bored into me, confusion twisting her face, I realized my carefully crafted invisibility was crumbling. "What's he talking about, Helen?" she demanded, her voice sharp enough to cut glass. I offered a small smile, my mind racing. "Just a misunderstanding, dear," I said. But Richard's stare burned through me, his memory too sharp for my liking. The quartet struck up a new tune, but the air was electric with tension. Michael approached, his brow furrowed. "Mom, what's going on?" he asked, his voice low but urgent. I touched his arm, my heart aching at the worry in his eyes. "Nothing to worry about, sweetheart." I lied, knowing the truth was a ticking bomb. Emily's gaze flicked to her father, then back to me, her lips tightening. "This isn't over," she hissed, turning on her heel, her gown swishing like a warning. As she stormed off, Richard's eyes followed me, a mix of awe and fear in his expression. I knew then that my secret, the one I'd guarded for 15 years, was no longer safe. Emily's venomous words had ignited a fire, and Richard's recognition had poured gasoline on it. The battle was just beginning, and I was ready to fight. The Napa Valley night pulsed with whispers as I slipped away from the Harper Estate's glittering reception, my sage green dress blending into the shadows. Emily Harper's venomous words, "our family's shameful disgrace," still echoed in my ears, and Richard Harper's stunned recognition had cracked the armor of my carefully guarded life. I'm Helen Carter, a 8-year-old widow from Sacramento, California, who'd spent 15 years hiding a truth that could topple empires. As I drove my 2008 Toyota Corolla back to my modest bungalow, the weight of that truth settled like a stone in my chest. Richard's words, "You're the investor who saved my company," hadn't just exposed me. They'd lit a fuse that threatened to burn down everything I'd built to protect my son, Michael. Let me take you back to where it all began. In 2010, my late husband, John, and I were engineers in Silicon Valley, toiling away in a cramped lab. John's genius birthed a game changer, a power management system for commercial buildings that slashed energy costs by 40%. We sold the patent for $30 million, a fortune we never dreamed of. "Helen," John said, his eyes bright with hope, "this is our chance to secure Michael's future. But let's keep it quiet. Let him make his own way." So we did. We told our then 4-year-old son, fresh out of UC Berkeley with a marketing degree, that we'd gotten a comfortable settlement. He assumed a few million, enough for my cozy Sacramento home and modest lifestyle. He never questioned it, never knew the half of it. That $30 million was just the seed. John and I poured it into investments careful at first, blue-chip stocks like Apple and Exxon, then bolder moves into Silicon Valley real estate and tech startups with rock-solid fundamentals. John had a nose for undervalued gems, spotting trends before Wall Street caught on. By 2015, our portfolio hit $100 million. When John died in 2018, his heart giving out after a long battle with illness. I carried on alone, growing our wealth to a staggering $1 billion by 2022. I wasn't just rich. I was a silent force, a shadow investor moving markets from my quiet Sacramento study, my old desktop humming as I managed a web of shell companies. 3 years ago, in 2022, I saw an opportunity in Harper Realty, Richard Harper's crumbling empire. His company, bloated with debt from reckless expansions, was bleeding cash $50 million in loans it couldn't service. Through a shell company, Pacific Crest Holdings, I bought it for $700 million, a steal for a firm with prime properties across California. I sat in that boardroom, a gray-haired woman in a simple blazer, letting my attorneys do the talking while Richard, red-faced and desperate, signed away his legacy. He thought I was just a bystander, maybe a lawyer's wife tagging along. "Thank you, whoever you are," he muttered as he left, never suspecting I'd just saved his 2,000 employees' jobs and his family's reputation. Now, at Emily's wedding, that boardroom moment had come back to haunt me. Richard's recognition wasn't just a slip, it was a crack in the dam I'd built around my life. As I stood by the dessert table, a $5,000 chocolate fountain gurgling nearby, Emily cornered me again, her voice sharp as a blade. "What was Daddy talking about, Helen?" she demanded, her manicured nails tapping her champagne flute. "What's this about Harper Realty?" I kept my face neutral, years of practice holding me steady. "Just a mix-up, Emily," I said softly. "Your father's had a lot of wine." But her eyes narrowed, a predator sensing blood. "I don't think so," she snapped. "You're hiding something, and I'll find out what." Michael approached, his brow creased with worry. "Mom, why's Emily so upset? What's this about Dad's old company?" His voice held a tremor, the same one I'd heard when he was a boy asking why his father was in the hospital. My heart twisted, but I couldn't tell him not yet. "It's nothing, Michael," I said, touching his arm. "Just enjoy your night." But as I glanced at Emily, now whispering furiously to Vivian, I knew the truth was slipping from my grasp. Vivian's cold stare met mine, her lips curling. "We'll get to the bottom of this, Helen," she said, her voice like ice. "People don't just forget saving a billion-dollar company." I drove home that night, the Sacramento skyline blurring through my tears. For 15 years, I'd shielded Michael from our wealth, to let him build his career, his corner office at a San Francisco marketing firm, his modest condo in Oakland, all earned through his own grit. But Emily's probing and Richard's memory had opened a door I couldn't close. As I pulled into my driveway, my phone buzzed with a text from Michael. "Mom, we need to talk tomorrow. Emily's asking questions about you." My stomach churned. The secret I'd guarded so fiercely was unraveling, and Emily's ambition was the thread pulling it apart. I wasn't just fighting for my privacy anymore, I was fighting for my son's trust. And I'd need every ounce of my strength to win. The Sacramento dawn broke gray and heavy, mirroring the dread pooling in my stomach. I'm Helen Carter, a 58-year-old widow who'd hidden a billion-dollar fortune to shield my son, Michael, from its weight. But Emily Harper's vicious words at her Napa Valley wedding, our family's shameful disgrace, and her father Richard's stunned recognition of me as the investor who saved Harper Realty had torn my carefully woven veil of secrecy. As I sat in my modest kitchen, sipping coffee from a chipped mug John bought me 20 years ago, my phone buzzed relentlessly. Michael's text from last night, "Mom, we need to talk." Emily's asking questions loomed like a storm cloud. I knew Emily wasn't just curious. Her sharp eyes and sharper tongue told me she was hunting, and I was her prey. By noon, I was in downtown Sacramento, meeting William Brooks, my financial advisor of 15 years, in his sleek office overlooking the Capitol. William, with his silver hair and wire-rimmed glasses, had been John's college roommate and my partner in building our empire. "Helen," he said, his voice tight, "Emily Harper's digging deeper than we thought." He slid a folder across his desk, its contents chilling me more than the air-conditioned room. "She's hired Blackwood Investigations, a high-end firm specializing in corporate asset tracing. They're sniffing around your shell company's Pacific Crest Holdings, among others. My heart thudded. How much do they know? I asked, my voice steady despite the panic clawing inside. William's eyes darkened. Enough to be dangerous. They've requested records from the SEC, hinting at undisclosed ownership in public companies. Emily's playing hardball. I leaned back, my sage green sweater feeling too tight. Emily's ambition wasn't just personal, it was strategic. She'd smelled money at the wedding, and now she was wielding her Wharton MBA like a weapon. There's more, William added, his fingers tapping the folder. She's consulted a law firm, Grayson & Associates, known for family wealth disputes. They're drafting questions about your acquisitions, especially Harper Realty. If they file with the SEC, you could face years of audits. My mind flashed to Michael, my 4-year-old son, who'd built his marketing career without a dime of my wealth. Would he see me as a liar if this unraveled? What's her endgame? I asked. William's jaw tightened. Control. She wants a piece of your fortune, Helen, and she's betting you'll settle to avoid exposure. That evening, Michael arrived at my bungalow, his face etched with a confusion that broke my heart. Mom, what's going on? He demanded, pacing my living room, his loafers scuffing the worn hardwood. Emily says you're hiding something about Dad's patents and Harper Realty. She's obsessed. His brown eyes, so like John's, searched mine for answers. I wanted to tell him everything, how John and I turned $30 million into $1 billion to protect his independence, how I saved Richard Harper's company from collapse. But the words caught in my throat. Michael, I said softly, it's complicated. I've always wanted you to live your own life. He stopped pacing, his voice cracking. My own life? Mom, Emily thinks you're some kind of secret tycoon. She's got lawyers involved. Why didn't you tell me? The pain in his voice was a knife, sharper than Emily's insults. I didn't want you to feel less than, I said, my hands trembling. Your father and I, we wanted you to earn your way, like we did. Michael shook his head, his expression a mix of anger and betrayal. Earn my way? Mom, I'm your son. You didn't trust me with the truth. He stormed toward the door, pausing only to say, Emily's coming over tomorrow. She wants answers. And I'm starting to think I do too. The door slammed, leaving me alone with the echo of his words and the weight of my choices. I sank into my armchair, the Sacramento skyline dim through my window. Emily's investigation wasn't just a threat to my privacy, it was tearing Michael away from me. My phone buzzed again, a text from Vivian Harper, Emily's mother. Helen, we need to discuss your situation. Lunch tomorrow at the firehouse. Don't make this harder than it needs to be. Her words dripped with the same condescension she'd shown at the wedding, but now they carried a sharper edge. Emily wasn't acting alone. The Harpers were closing in, their wealth and influence fueling a campaign to unravel my life. As I stared at John's old jazz records on the shelf, I felt a fire kindling inside me. Emily thought she could corner me, but she'd underestimated the woman who'd built $1 billion empire in the shadows. Tomorrow I'd face her, and the battle for my family's future would ignite. The Sacramento night wrapped my bungalow in a suffocating silence, broken only by the faint hum of crickets outside my window. I'm Helen Carter, a 58-year-old widow who'd built $1 billion empire to protect my son, Michael, only to watch it tear us apart. Emily Harper's venomous insult at her Napa Valley wedding, our family's shameful disgrace, and her relentless investigation into my hidden fortune had driven a wedge between me and my 4-year-old son. Michael's words last night, "You didn't trust me with the truth," echoed like a gunshot in my heart. As I sat in my dimly lit living room, clutching a faded photo of Michael as a boy, his gap-toothed smile beaming beside his father John, I felt the weight of 15 years of secrecy crushing me. I'd hidden my wealth to give him freedom, but now it felt like I'd stolen his trust. The morning after Michael's angry departure, I stood in my rose garden, the petals drooping under a rare August drizzle. My hands trembled as I pruned the bushes, each snip a desperate attempt to hold onto something familiar. John and I had planted these roses when Michael was born, promising to raise him with love, not money. "Let him be his own man, Helen," John had said, his voice steady even as illness claimed him in 2018. I'd kept that promise, turning our $30 million patent sale into a $1 billion fortune through silent investments, all to shield Michael from the pressure of wealth. But now, Emily's probing her Blackwood investigations, digging into my shell companies. Her lawyers sniffing at the SEC threatened to expose everything. Worse, Michael's pain was my fault, and that truth cut deeper than any of Emily's barbs. My phone buzzed on the kitchen counter, pulling me from my thoughts. It was a voicemail from Michael, left at 2 a.m. His voice was raw, frayed with exhaustion. "Mom, I can't do this. Emily's got me questioning everything, our family, Dad's legacy, you. How could you hide this? I thought we were honest with each other." He paused, his breath shaky. "I need space. Don't call me." The message ended, and I sank to the floor, the cold linoleum biting through my jeans. My son, the boy I'd raised to value integrity, now saw me as a liar. The photo of him and John slipped from my hands, landing face down on the counter. I'd spent 15 years protecting him from the world's greed, only to lose him to my own deception. I stared at the Sacramento skyline through my window, the Capitol's dome barely visible in the rain. Memories flooded back Michael's first day at UC Berkeley, his pride when he bought his Oakland condo with his own savings, his laughter at our Sunday dinners. I'd thought my silence was a gift, letting him build a life as a marketing director without the shadow of my billions. But Emily's ambition had turned my sacrifice into a betrayal. Her mother, Vivian Harper, had texted about a lunch at the firehouse, her words dripping with menace. "Don't make this harder than it needs to be." I could almost hear her smug tone, see her diamond-clad fingers typing. They thought they could corner me, unravel my life like a cheap sweater. But they didn't know the woman they were facing. I dragged myself to my study, where John's old desk stood, cluttered with our jazz records and a single rose from the garden. I opened a drawer, pulling out a leather-bound journal where we'd scribbled our first investment plans. Apple stocks, Silicon Valley condos, tech startups. Each page was a testament to our dream for Michael's independence. But now, as I traced John's faded handwriting, tears blurred my vision. "I'm sorry, John," I whispered. I thought I was doing right by him. The pain was a physical ache, as if my heart was splintering. I'd built an empire to protect my son, but in shielding him from wealth, I'd left him defenseless against Emily's greed. My phone buzzed again. William Brooks, my advisor. "Helen, it's worse," he said, his voice urgent. "Emily's team is pushing harder with the SEC, claiming insider trading on your Harper Realty deal. And Michael, he's been seen with her at Grayson and Associates." My breath caught. My own son meeting with Emily's lawyers? The betrayal sliced deeper than I thought possible. I gripped the journal, my resolve hardening through the pain. Emily thought she could break me, but she'd awakened something fiercer. Tomorrow's lunch at the firehouse wouldn't be her victory. It would be the start of my fight. I'd face her, not as the disgrace she mocked, but as the woman who'd built a billion-dollar legacy. And I'd make sure she regretted ever crossing me. The Firehouse restaurant in Sacramento glowed under golden chandeliers, its polished oak tables and crisp white linens screaming old money elegance. I'm Helen Carter, a 8-year-old widow from Sacramento, who'd hidden a billion-dollar fortune to protect my son, Michael. But Emily Harper's vicious wedding insult, our family's shameful disgrace, and her ruthless investigation into my wealth had driven a wedge between us. Michael's voicemail last night, raw with betrayal, had left me broken. His words, "I need space," echoing like a death knell. Today, I walked into this lunch, invited by Emily's mother, Vivian, with a fire in my gut. My sage green dress and silver locket were my armor. But beneath them, I was a mother fighting to reclaim her son from a woman who saw him as a paycheck. I arrived early, choosing a corner table with a view of the entrance. Emily swept in at noon, her tailored Armani suit as sharp as her ambition, Michael trailing behind, his eyes shadowed with doubt. Vivian followed, her diamond bracelet glinting like a warning. "Helen," Emily said, her smile as cold as the Sacramento River in winter. "So good of you to join us." Her voice dripped with the same condescension she'd wielded at the Napa Valley wedding. Michael sat silently, his hands clenched, avoiding my gaze. My heart ached, but I forced a calm nod. "Let's make this quick, Emily," I said, my voice steady despite the storm inside. Emily leaned forward, her green eyes gleaming. "We've been doing some digging, Helen. Your financial activities are quite the mystery. Pacific Crest Holdings, for instance, curious how it snapped up Harper Realty when Daddy was struggling." Vivian smirked, sipping her $50 glass of Chardonnay. "Indeed," she added. "It's almost as if you orchestrated his failure." I clenched my napkin, the accusation stoking my fury. "I saved your husband's company, Vivian," I said, my tone icy. 2,000 jobs, a legacy preserved. "You're welcome." Emily's smile tightened. "Saved it for yourself, you mean? We're proposing a family trust, say, $100 million to start to ensure transparency. Michael deserves to know his mother's true wealth, don't you think?" Michael's head snapped up, his voice low but raw. "Mom, is it true? Did you hide $1 billion from me?" The pain in his eyes was a dagger, sharper than Emily's schemes. I swallowed hard, my resolve wavering. "Michael, I wanted you to build your own life, not live in my shadow. Your father and I, we chose this for you." He shook his head, his jaw tight. "You chose to lie, Mom. Emily's right, we need a trust, something fair for the family." Emily's triumph was palpable, her lips curling as she slid a legal document across the table. "Sign this, Helen," she said. "It's best for everyone." I stared at the paper, my pulse roaring. They thought they'd cornered me, but they'd forgotten who I was. "Fair?" I said, my voice cutting through the restaurant's hum. "Let's talk about fair, Emily." I pulled a folder from my purse, the one William Brooks, my advisor, had prepared. "This is your contract with Blackwood Investigations, dated 2 weeks ago. You hired them to dig into my shell companies. Costly move $20,000 up front." Emily's face paled, her fingers freezing on her glass. "And this," I continued, sliding out another page, "is your consultation with Grayson and Associates, specialists in family wealth disputes. Planning to sue me, were you?" Vivian gasped, her bracelet clattering against the table. Michael's eyes widened, darting to his wife. "Emily, you did what?" I leaned forward, my voice low and lethal. "And here's the kicker. 3 new credit accounts, opened last month, $50,000 in debt. Betting on a big payout, Emily? Tell me, do you love my son, or just the dollar signs you think he's worth?" The silence was deafening, the restaurant's chatter fading as Emily's composure cracked. She stammered, "This is absurd, Helen. I'm protecting our family." Michael's voice broke through, trembling with fury. "Answer her, Emily. Do you love me, or is this all a game?" Her eyes darted, searching for an escape, but none came. The truth hung heavy, unspoken but undeniable. I stood, my heart pounding but my resolve ironclad. "You thought you could unravel me, Emily, but you picked the wrong fight." Michael's gaze met mine, a flicker of doubt replacing his anger. As I left the firehouse, Vivian's text from last night echoed, "Don't make this harder." Oh, I'd make it harder. Emily's greed had pushed me to the edge, but I wasn't done. Tomorrow, in a boardroom with lawyers, I'd show her exactly who she'd challenged a mother with $1 billion and a will of steel. The Sacramento boardroom was a sterile cage of glass and steel, its long mahogany table reflecting the cold light of downtown skyline. I'm Helen Carter, a 58-year-old widow who'd hidden $1 billion fortune to protect my son, Michael. only to watch Emily Harper's greed rip us apart. Her wedding insult, our family's shameful disgrace, and her relentless investigation into my wealth had pushed Michael to doubt me, his raw voicemail still burning in my mind. I thought we were honest. Yesterday's confrontation at the firehouse had exposed Emily's schemes, her $20,000 private investigators, her $50,000 debt, her lawyers plotting to seize my fortune. But today, in this room, I'd end her game. My sage green blazer felt like armor, my silver locket a reminder of John's strength. I was done hiding. The door swung open, and Emily strode in, her Armani heels clicking like a countdown. Michael followed, his face pale, his eyes avoiding mine. Richard Harper, the billionaire whose company I'd saved, shuffled in next, his tailored suit unable to mask his unease. Vivian Harper, diamonds glinting on her wrist, sat with a smirk that screamed victory. My advisor, William Brooks, stood at my side, his folder of evidence ready. The Harper's lawyer, a wiry man from Grayson and Associates named Paul Grayson, adjusted his glasses and spoke first. Miss Carter, we're here to finalize the family trust. $100 million, as discussed, to ensure transparency for Michael's future. Emily nodded, her green eyes gleaming with triumph. It's only fair, Helen, she said, her voice smooth as venom. Michael deserves his share. I let the silence stretch, my gaze locked on Emily. Michael shifted uncomfortably, his hands clenched. Mom, just explain, he said, his voice low, pleading. Why all the secrets? My heart twisted, but I held firm, my voice steady as steel. Fairness, Emily? Let's talk about that. I nodded to William, who slid a stack of documents across the table. These are your financials, Emily. 3 credit accounts, $50,000 in debt, opened right after the wedding. A $20,000 retainer to Blackwood Investigations to dig into my companies. And emails to Grayson here, plotting to accuse me of insider trading with the SEC. Paul's glasses slipped down his nose, his face paling. Vivian's smirk vanished, her bracelet clattering as her hand trembled. Emily's composure cracked, her voice rising. This is slander, Helen. I was protecting our family. I leaned forward, my eyes boring into hers. Protecting? Or profiting? You thought you could bully me into submission, but you're not as clever as you think. I pulled out my final card, a legal contract, drafted by William overnight. Here's my offer, Emily. $10 million wired to your account today, on one condition. You leave Michael's life forever, divorce him, walk away, and never look back. The room froze, the air thick with shock. Michael's jaw dropped, his eyes darting to Emily. Mom, what are you doing? He whispered, his voice breaking. Emily laughed, a brittle sound. You're bluffing. You wouldn't dare. But Paul, flipping through my contract, shook his head. She's not, Miss Harper. This is ironclad. Refuse. And her evidence against you fraud. Attempted extortion could land you in court for years. Richard, silent until now, slammed his fist on the table. Enough, Emily, he roared, his face red with shame. I knew Helen saved Harper Realty, but I let you drag us into this mess. I'm sorry, Helen. I should have stopped her. His apology hung heavy, a billionaire humbled by his daughter's greed. Michael stood, his eyes locked on Emily, searching for the woman he'd married. Tell me the truth, he said, his voice raw. Did you love me? Or was it always about the money? Emily's lips parted, but no words came. Her silence was louder than any confession. Michael's shoulders slumped, his voice barely a whisper. I want a divorce. He turned to me, tears in his eyes. Mom, I'm so sorry I doubted you. I reached for his hand, my heart aching but resolute. It's okay, sweetheart, I'm fighting for you. As Emily's face crumpled, Paul whispered urgently in her ear, urging her to take the deal. I stood, my voice calm but unyielding. You have 24 hours, Emily. Choose wisely. I left the boardroom, William at my side, the weight of my billion-dollar secret now a weapon. But the fight wasn't over. Emily's greed had fractured my family, and I needed to ensure Michael's future on my terms. Tomorrow, I'd finalize the terms of her exit, and with it, secure the life John and I had dreamed for our son. The Sacramento dusk painted my bungalow in hues of gold, a quiet balm after the storm. I'm Helen Carter, a 8-year-old widow who fought to protect my son, Michael, from the greed that tore at our family. Emily Harper's cruel label, our family's shameful disgrace, and her ruthless pursuit of my billion-dollar fortune had nearly broken us. But in that boardroom, with my $10 million offer, I reclaimed our future. Emily took the money and vanished, her Armani heels echoing into silence as she signed the divorce papers. Michael, my 4-year-old son, stood by me, his eyes heavy with regret, but brighter with hope. "Mom, I was wrong," he whispered, his hand warm in mine. "You were always fighting for me." Now, Michael's found peace with Laura, a Sacramento nurse whose laughter fills our Sunday dinners, her heart untouched by dollar signs. Sitting in my rose garden, where John and I once dreamed of a simple life for our son, I've learned a truth that cuts deeper than wealth. Never let others define your worth. I hid my billions to give Michael freedom, but strength, not secrecy, saved us. Live true, stand firm, and protect what matters, even when it hurts. If my story stirred something in you, share it below. Have you ever been judged unfairly? Your words mean the world to me, and the Unwanted Revenge. Hit like, drop a comment, and subscribe to join us in uncovering the strength in every untold story. Let's walk this journey together.